Look, I chose to read this book instead of going out and getting a haircut, so the hat is staying on. If I was a lazy commentator, which I certainly am, I would have said that the Virgin New Adventures and the Eighth Doctor Adventures were kind of in a similar pattern within the early stories. The first one is a bit rough, the second one is written by old-timers and it's really well received. Then the third one is the one everyone seems a bit meh on, and then the fourth one is either really, really good, or at least pretty well liked from what I've heard. The Time Worm arc seems to be trying to tell really unconventional multi-Doctor stories, whilst the EDAs are straightforwardly using old characters and old monsters. That's kind of the first big complaint I've heard with this book, is that the Zygons are spoiled because they're on the cover. But I wonder how many people back in the day would have recognised them given how access to Classic Who wasn't as readily available as it is today. I suppose the weird thing about this one is that the title doesn't really have that much to do with what goes on in the book. I hear the Bodysnatchers, and I kind of assume we're getting historical about Burke and Hare, which Big Finish apparently went on to later do. But body snatching and grave robbing, that actually plays a very little part in the overall story, and the grave robbers are basically just a B-plot at most. Instead, we're getting a Talons of Weng-Chiang sequel and a Terror of the Zygons prequel. So, a nostalgia piece for the Hinchcliffe era. After the ambition and thematic depth of something like Vampire Science, getting something like this, which is just trying to be the grisliest, grimmest, grossest bit of Victorian horror, pre-order now in order to get your sideburns and cholera. I can see how that might leave you a bit wanting. There's a bit where 8 remarks that the Zygon's plan is boring, and if your main character is thinking this about your plot, then why are we here, you know? Again, I was mostly prepared for this going in, so I wasn't let down. I knew what I was getting into. I do think even on the merits of judging it by what it's trying to be, this thing has some issues. You want foggy, disgusting, cobbled streets. You want the Thames filled with sewage. You want worker exploitation and class disparity. This book has all of that, as does the year of our Lord 2023. It's slightly overwritten for what it is, and I think that does really hurt the pacing, especially in the second half. It's 140 pages, and I think at least 30 of them could have been cut. And the really puzzling thing is that they bring back Lightfoot, but they don't bring back Jago. This book engaged in some serious Jago baiting, and I think the community deserves better. For all this book is emulating the work of Robert Holmes, it seems to really fumble the classic Bob Holmes double act. We're seemingly given one in the Bodysnatchers, Jack and Albert, who we're introduced to in the opening scene, and yet they're kind of an afterthought throughout the whole thing. Jack is a horrible human being, but Albert I think had a fair bit of potential, and yet he's killed off halfway through. The Doctor and Sam are okay. I accepted that 8 was going to be as nowhere interesting as he was last time. He's what I imagine you'd get if you'd asked Peter Davison to do his best Tom Baker impression. And at least Mark Morris gets that 8 is meant to be easily distracted. He turns up at the end to return Lightfoot's rifle. For Lightfoot it's only been a few hours, but it's implied that this is 8 well further along in his adventures. They use that point to do a little bit of foreshadowing about Sam, so I'm looking forward to where that's going at least. Sam still feels pretty in character. I really do get the sense of her between this and the last book that she's trying to appear more a fit for this world than she is. Whenever she freezes up or shows weakness, she gets angry at herself for it. She seems to have a bit of a thing for 8, which I think was also implied in the last book as well. Wait, wasn't she in high school? We get some interesting lore surrounding the Zygons, like the fact that they can cringe. Some interesting descriptions of their tech. A lot of organic computers, often resembling spiders or crabs. Have I mentioned this book is disgusting? The thing I'm mostly reminded of with this book is the Unquiet Dead, and I think I respect that one a lot more because of its place within the series. When Zim was watching Series 1 for the first time, Prior to Dalek, that was the episode she took the most seriously. It's well placed. It's right there to win back anyone who was alienated by all the camp in Rose and End of the World. It's a story for serious fans and critics. While I'm not in love with it, I think it was definitely a good call to have it be where it is. Here, this story doesn't really fulfill that function, and as such, I'm kinda on it. But still, there's some decent stuff. The shape-shifting with the Zygons is used for a pretty decent twist about halfway through. Lightfoot is okay. I've not rewatched Talons in a long time, and even then, him and Jago were never my favourite Bob Holmes double act. Is the Big Finish series any good? Let me know in the comments. The Doctor accidentally killing all the Zygons. Another contentious point, I actually don't hate it. It's something different, and I think when done properly, it could be really dramatically effective. The only other example I can think of that's close to this is maybe the Ark. I also appreciate the narrative symmetry, or at least consistency, with the fact that this is 2 stories in a row now, where 8 has had to play ambassador between a classic Who villain and a bunch of humans. But it's kind of brushed past in the ending, so I do get why people thought it was dumb. Oh, and I did have one little quibble.
Where are the vampire squirrels? You give me vampire squirrels, and then they're not in any other novels ever again? You can't do this to me. You can't.